Lecture 29, Transformations in Western Europe. A theme to keep in mind, the West has finally caught up with the East, finally caught up with China in the early modern period. Let's look at this in four categories, these transformations. First, there's an increasing commercialization of the European economy. European products are now finally becoming attractive to the rest of the world. Let's just use France as an example. French wines are going to become desirable. Villages in France will tend to specialize in some product, whatever it might be. It could be cutlery, it could be shoes, could be some metallurgy of some sort. Merchants and landlords produce specifically for a larger market. Expansion of domestic manufacturing, whether it's textiles or metal products or clothing or food. There's an elite demand for luxury goods as a source of both status and identity. Workers are increasingly dependent upon the sale of their labor. There's a gap growing here between people who own property and people who do not have access to property. Those who don't have property, of course, are going to have to sell their labor in order to survive. There's a changing attitude toward the poor. Gone is the time of, well, the poor must always be with us, to a new attitude that the poor deserve their lot, either through bad decisions or bad character. Poor women are especially vulnerable, and it is poor women that are usually accused of witchcraft and executed for it. All these developments tend to make Europe more like China. So again, Europe is catching up. And then, of course, by 1750, you'll see the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution in Europe, which will put Europe at the head of the line. A second category here, political change, as we move from feudalism to absolutism. Feudalism, of course, is decentralized. It's a hierarchical system of distinct classes. It's a reciprocal system where everybody owes somebody something, whether it's food by the peasants or protection by the king. This is going to begin to change now to absolute rule with much more powerful centralized governments. Bureaucrats are going to be sent throughout the territory, throughout the empire or the state in order to enforce the king's will. National borders are going to be established. Prisons are going to be established. There's an increasing sense of rationalization. How do we do these things correctly and efficiently? In the military, you're going to have standardization of uniforms, different officer grades, training, engineers, pension systems, and so on. Again, logic, reason, rationality. Clear ideas are emerging about the nation state. Feudalism had identified itself essentially with Christianity. Now, the people's identity is going to flow more to their nation state as opposed to their religion. So you have the emergence of nation states, the emergence of nationalism and identification with the state. Individuals are going to be called upon for active loyalty to the state. Europe is catching up with China. Third major development here I want to mention briefly is culture. Wide-scale printing leads to increased literacy in Europe. I believe it was the middle of the 15th century, Gutenberg with the printing press. We mentioned this earlier. Newspapers are going to be printed and disseminated. Europeans begin to learn about themselves and about the rest of the world. The Protestant Reformation, of course, will shatter the Christian unity of Europe. People now read and interpret the Bible for themselves. So you see there's a sense here of the institutions of the Catholic Church being put out of business. If the congregation is literate and can read the Bible and interpret it, then who needs the priest, the bishop, the cardinal, the pope, in order to interpret the Bible for them? So after the Reformation, of course, notions of religious tolerance will grow in Europe as that unity has been shattered. It becomes clear to many people that there's more than one orthodoxy. Orthodoxy, of course, means thinking straight. In the context of religion, It's believing, practicing the right faith. And it's going to become increasingly clear that there's more than one way to do this. Fourth is the scientific revolution. Where does the truth, with a big T, where does the truth lie? Do we find it through science, or do we find it through faith? This, of course, is the great ongoing conflict that continues to today. Experimentation, inquisitiveness, the sort of attitude of go see for yourself. This is becoming more and more prevalent over the old notions of sort of depending upon traditional sources of authority, like the Bible, for instance. Science combines now with the printing press and literacy and pushes Europe to the forefront of world societies. Magic gives way to reason and logic. From what had been a clerical world, a world based upon the church, is now increasingly a secular world, a world focused more on man as opposed to God. Superstitions are increasingly pushed aside. Individualism emerges here. A couple of examples. Previously, a new child is named after a year or so for an already dead child or for another relative. Now, a new child is named immediately as individualism sort of takes root, a new name for a new person. Another example, previously, a young girl would follow her parents' commands to marry at a particular time and a particular young man. Later, this young girl could resist and make her own choice regarding marriage. So marriage is going to move from a property arrangement to include those aspects of individualism, love, affection, sex, and so on. So let's just draw some quick conclusions here for this discussion of these transformations in Western Europe. First, Europeans are going to increasingly anticipate change and welcome it. Europeans are going to increasingly judge other societies by their superstitions. Europeans are going to judge other societies by their technology or their lack of technology. The most famous example of this I can think of off the top of my head, of course, is Columbus when he reaches the Bahamas. And the poor natives grab the Spanish swords by the edge and cut themselves, having never seen metal before and having no notion of the sharpness of these weapons. Columbus draws the conclusion from this that these people are primitive, they will be easily converted to Christianity or turned into slaves. You may remember also that Columbus interpreted the natives' nakedness as a sign of poverty and lack of sophistication. So Europeans are going to judge other people based upon their own standards in technology and other things. Europeans begin to set targets for other societies to aspire to by the late 18th century. Europe is caught and passed China now. So this is, these are key transformations in European history. And of course, they will have a dramatic impact on the rest of the world as well. Thank you for your attention.